That's right.
Hello and welcome to the Creativity Podcast. It's the podcast where art and engineering collide. Today's June 8th, 2021, and we have Olivia Snyder here with us in the studio. I don't know if this is really a studio, but I'm going to say that it is. And we're going to talk to Olivia about her fancy pottery business, fairyhive.com. I'll put a link to that in the description. And we've got lots of stuff to talk to Olivia about, but we'll start there, I think. How are you doing, Olivia?
I'm doing all right, man.
I did a bad job because I didn't mention this is my co-host Jeremy over here too. Jeremy Cook. He's here too.
I'm here as well as I am most. I guess every episode up to this point. So I guess that's
impressive.
a good thing. And this is my first time meeting Olivia, but Pat, you know Olivia from, I guess, your Makerspace, your hometown of Plano, correct?
I do. Olivia and I are. Are you in Plano, Olivia? Do I know that?
I am.
Oh, I thought so.
I'm like right in the middle of Plano.
I'm not. I'm on the edge of Plano. I'm on one of the edges. But that's okay.
You guys met when you were both working at the factory where they make those cases for like fishing lures and stuff. Is that right?
Do you know, I'm bummed out. I almost bought a Plano brand tackle box to put all my electronic stuff in. Because, those little bins are great for sorting resistors and diodes and stuff.
Sure.
And then I asked Google, and that's a different Plano. That's up north somewhere.
Like
like Plano, Illinois.
I was going to say Illinois, so I'm going to say that's correct. Because that was what I was going to say also.
So as you say in Texas, it's the Yankee Plano, right? The Yankee Planos.
Good question.
What is somebody from Plano? What do they call themselves? A Plano person, or?
I call myself Pat.
Okay, Pat. Okay, not Matt though.
I call you Pat as well.
She does. It's true.
Well,
I'm not real
listen.
sure. I bet there's a technical term.
Maybe. Well, listen, Pat. I mean, enough about us, I guess. Now, Olivia, you live in Plano. Obviously, you have a pottery business. Now, you have 2 kids, right? That you homeschool. Is that?
That's
wow.
Yep.
So
that's
awesome.
Correct.
So how'd you decide to go on down that path of homeschooling your kids?
Honestly, it's kind of similar to why I'm so interested in the Makerspace. Is I'm really adamant about self-education, about kind of being able to direct your own education. And my husband and I felt that homeschooling kind of gave us that avenue to do that. And one of my good friends who's also a homeschooler, she said, because I said, before I started, I said, I'm worried, because I don't know everything. How am I going to teach them this? And she said, your job is not to be their teacher. You are their education coordinator. It's your responsibility to seek out what you feel are the best educational opportunities for them, whether that's extra tutoring classes, a workbook that's helpful, going on a field trip somewhere. So far, they're enjoying it and doing a good job.
And you were doing this before it became popular, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's people where they say, oh, that's crisis.
Oh, crisis.
But yeah, I did have a friend who has a son the same age as mine that she said, I don't know how you do this
I'm
every
sure.
day. I can't wait till the schools open back up.
Yeah. But I mean, you got your kids at home and you got your business at home too, which is your pottery businesses. Is that correct? And I guess you're in your studio right now. I would have to imagine, right? Okay, awesome. So I guess kiln is the kiln your most important piece of equipment as far as pottery goes, or is it pottery wheel, or what is? I guess, can you just give us an intro to pottery and the techniques involved? Because I mean, some people listening might not have any idea what it's all about. I mean, I think we all saw the movie Ghost, or I never did, but you're familiar with the scene at least.
Yeah, you can get some good ghost memes in some pottery groups online. Honestly, there's a couple ways. It's starting with some form of clay. Some people use liquid clay for what's called slip casting, which is how a lot of industrial pottery is made. some people use hand building, which is just you can use tools and roll out big slabs of clay and whatnot, and then there's the wheel
The
that you
pottery
can
wheel.
use.
Okay, so the pottery wheel is what
And
most people probably think of
it,
as making pottery.
and there's actually also, which one of these days I'm going to get into, you can 3D print actual ceramic, which is pretty darn amazing. I haven't had a chance to experience that yet, but hungrily following a lot of people that have built their own.
I saw that there's one or
purchase.
two
But
clay extruding printers on Kickstarter earlier this year. I thought that was exciting. I don't know how they went. I don't know if they succeeded or not or delivered, but it was still interesting that they're
they
doing
may have
it.
gone the way
They're
that
trying.
most 3D printer Kickstarters go. I'm not sure, but basically after you've made what you wish out of clay, then it usually goes through first firing, which is called a bisque, and that kind of makes everything all nice and hard, so it's not going to fall apart or break quite so easily. And then,
So not like a lobster bisque, which is very not hard.
yes, it is not nearly so fishy nor creamy. Uh, but
so so this bisque, you do this in the kiln, correct? Which heats it up.
yes,
Is that correct?
so
Okay.
it's like the clay I work with, when it's wet, it looks gray. After it goes through the bisque firing, it's white. And after I bisque, then I paint. I do a lot of painting with glazes. Some people dip into big buckets of glaze, but I prefer kind of doing a lot more painting of my glazes. And then it goes through another firing, which basically kind of melts all the glaze so it gets all nice and shiny and the colors brighten up and what have you. And sometimes it'll go through yet another firing if it's gotten a luster like gold or mother of pearl put on it, which I tend to do that a lot because I like sparkly, shiny things. But it's kind of, all of the elements are required. You have to have something to build on, and then probably the kiln would be the most important thing, because you don't have to have a wheel to make cool stuff with pottery.
But you use a wheel most of the time, correct? Or not?
I use the wheel for a lot of my, like if I'm making mugs or bowls and whatnot, is I
Okay.
use the wheel, and then I'll do like a lot of hand building with stuff afterward.
Olivia, I thought I was going to have a dumb question, but you've already made me think that this might actually be a good question. Bisque.
Yes,
Is that
bisque.
the right word that I just heard today? When we were I was talking to Jeremy about kilns. Well, not talking to him, but in our notes here, and I was thinking, like, I wonder if this is like pizza. Can you par bake the pottery and then, what I'm kind of wondering about that is the bisque, does that require the super hot, like if I wanted to learn how to pottery, could I do pottery at home? Can I do part of it in my oven and then take it somewhere now that it's not so squishy? And
If you want it to get up to the temperatures where the clay is what's called vitrified, which means that all the little particles have gone through their chemical change and are now, they've basically been transformed into something different, rather than just, a heap of mud, then you would have to take it somewhere else. But there are people that do what are called like pit firing, where it's basically you just dig a hole, put the pottery in, start a fire on top of it, cover it up, and let it cook for a while. It may not necessarily be food safe, but that's how most pottery got its start, was just dumping everything in a big flaming hole. And I've recently discovered, because there's such a thing as a microwave glass kiln, there are people that have started doing like teeny tiny pottery in those microwave kilns. So, I mean, it's purely decorative,
Oh, wow.
but that's something else I'm looking. I've got like a whole list of things to try. That's definitely one of them.
I'm not surprised the microwave can do it, because I've heard of people melting aluminum with the microwave. They modify it somehow. I don't know what's involved, but if it can get enough heat to melt aluminum, it must somehow get enough heat to
Yeah, we Yeah.
pottery.
So you say microwave kiln. Is this that you just put it in the microwave, or is there actually like some sort of chamber that you put around it for it to fire correctly?
Yeah, it's looks like kind of like it almost looks like a little circular styrofoam cooler. It's not made of styrofoam, but that's what it looks like. But it's got a base that you put like the glass or the clay on, and then kind of a little cover, and then it goes into the microwave for, I think it kind of varies, 5 minutes, something like that. It's not like the hours long firings that you do like in a big kiln, but you put it in there for a couple of minutes, and then you take it out and you let it cool for like 6 hours. But it's absolutely fascinating that it's just beep beep beep. Yay! I have glass jewelry.
So yeah, that's probably a great way for somebody to get started if they didn't want to buy a kiln and all the other various things you have to go with it.
Well, yeah, and that's also one of the reasons why I advocate for, going to your local makerspace. Because like we actually just at the one that Pat and I are members of, we have a microwave kiln that a member donated, and at some of the larger makerspaces they actually have big pottery kilns for people to use. But if you ask anybody of the pottery people, we pretty much know of community firings that are done around the city, so that if you don't have a kiln at home, you can get started, take it to the community kiln and get stuff fired. So they're pretty down to earth people that are happy to help people get into the hobby.
Sure.
That's very cool.
Well, yeah, you think down to earth, like literally and figuratively, I guess, right? Because it's so do you actually get your clay out of the ground, or do you buy it somewhere?
Most of my clay I buy. There's a company in Austin, Texas called Armadillo Clay, and another one here in Dallas called Trinity, and they have their own clay formulations, and so I really enjoy using theirs. Although I have mined some of my own clay right from my backyard when we planted a tree. But that was kind of just almost a fun experience unto itself, where it's cleaning it and separating everything and then testing to see, how hot it needs to be fired. So I don't know where the piece is right now, but I made like a little tiny pinch pot bowl out of Plano clay.
Very cool.
Nice.
I assume when you buy the clay pre-made, so where they have, it's probably like a spool of 3D printer filament where they tell you temperatures and specs and things to get started.
Yeah, like they'll say, because some clays fire at very, very low temperatures, and they're better for hand building as opposed to throwing on the wheel, and some clays they're for very, very high temperatures, and they're going to be a little bit more durable. And I actually used to work at a paint your own pottery studio, like where you go in and they've got all the bowls and figurines and stuff, and so you can paint them and then we take care of them. We had one of the employees, instead of firing at cone 06, he fired at cone 6, which is much, much higher. And so when we opened up the kiln, all these figurines were just melted.
So cone
Poor
6
thing.
versus cone 06. What do you mean by that exactly?
Pottery temperatures are measured in what are called cones, and the reason for that is there's a company called Orton that they make these little cones. Again, I don't have one sitting with me, but they make these little cones that are designed they kind of stand up when you put them in the kiln, and they bend at the proper temperature. And so, and I have to have a chart in front of me to know the exact numbers for everything, but when I fire at cone 04 for my bisque firings, it gets up to around 1800 something. When I fire at cone 6, when I'm doing higher or mid-fire stuff, then it gets up to, I think, little under
really
2000. But you put the witness cone in there. Yeah. When you put the witness cone in there, because you can't always depend on the pyrometer that's in the kiln. You have to put the little witness cone in there, and if it bends perfectly, it's reached the perfect temperature. I know my clay has been properly vitrified, everything's matured. Whereas if it's
like
you take it out and the cone's still standing up, and it didn't get to the right temperature, something happened. Oh yeah, no, we'd take little kids on the tour of the kiln room, and the only point of reference I could give them, it was, how hot does your mom have the oven when she makes cookies? 350. And they'd start throwing out guesses for how hot the pottery kilns got, and they were always under, except for the smart mouth kid that 5,000 degrees.
Well, Pat had something in his notes about a 3D printed clay extruder.
Oh, that was so
can you
exciting,
elaborate
Olivia,
on that?
when you told us about that. That was, all of our jaws were dropping when you were explaining this, when we met you at the Makerspace the first time.
Well, that was one of the reasons I got into 3D printing, and I found the Makerspace. But the only reason that it took me so long, because it was, wow, 3D printing, and you'd see the display at Staples where it had whatever kind of crappy overpriced thing they had, and wow, you can just make things happen, it's so cool. But I didn't know how to 3D model, and that was kind of intimidating. And so I just started doing my own research, found Tinkercad, and they got pictures of like kindergartners building things on there, so okay, I can do this one. So I built parts to go into a homemade clay extruder, because actual clay extruders, they usually start around like $50 to $150.
And just to back up a little bit, by extruder you mean like a 3D printer, so it just pushes out the clay bit by bit and kind of builds up a surface. Is that correct?
What, do you remember like the Play-Doh Fun Factory?
Yeah.
When you're a kid and you like stuff the Play-Doh in and the clay comes out, the Play-Doh comes out. Yeah, it's pretty much like that, except for clay it has to be really strong, because sometimes the clay is super hard. Sometimes it's got what's called grog, which is like grit and bits of pieces in it to help make it stronger. So Play-Doh Fun Factory ain't gonna cut it. But basically there's a design out there for clay extruders where you take a caulk gun and a piece of, I think it's 2-inch or 3/4-inch PVC pipe. And you have to modify the end of the caulk gun a little bit in order to get the pipe to be able to have an opening at the end of the pipe. But you cut the pipe, put it in like you would caulk gun thing, and then you put a cap on the end of the pipe, and you put the clay inside the pipe, and you with the caulk gun, and then clay comes out. And most of the things I've seen, they use like a PVC end cap, and they've drilled holes, or they use a knife to cut it, and it's not perfectly square, and it's so hard to cut through this, and I wonder if I could 3D print that. That's something I could do. And so I learned how to model in Tinkercad. I got my little model, I went down to the library, got them to print it.
Nice.
And it kind of turned addictive after that. And I took them to get printed there was a local 3D printer shop where the guy sold 3D printers and filament and all that. And he was super helpful in kind of explaining things to me and giving me resources. And from there, I found the Makerspace. And that, just absolutely, that found my tribe. It's people that like to make things, people that like to do things, and the potential for kind of cross-pollination in making was so amazing to me. And when I got there, I wanted to know how do I use the 3D printers? How do they work? And it was actually Pat and his pal Brian that showed me how to use them. And I said, wow, this is great. You guys should do an intro to 3D printing class. And they said, okay, do one.
We did.
And so, yeah, so I did as much research as I could, learned even more, and taught intro to 3D printing. And that was one of the demos I used for kind of a use case, was the 3D printed extruders. And I the 3D printers want to probably become one of my more important tools, because I make clay cutters with them, I make molds with them, I make, the extruder caps for them, doing like graphic design stuff for since college, which wasn't so long ago.
Yeah, me neither. It was only a few years ago.
But no, knowing how to do stuff with vectors, like you can just immediately start, know how to do stuff for the laser cutter, get started with stuff for the 3D printer. And the Makerspace just got a CNC machine, so I'm super excited
You're going to have so much fun with the CNC,
getting into that.
Nice.
But
so much fun.
It looks so much fun. It looks so much fun. I just did the test project that got me certified on the machine, so I'm like, yay! Can't wait.
Well,
but
I'd say lasers are more fun myself, but that's that's coming from someone that had a CNC, then a 3D printer, and then another CNC, and then a laser cutter is my most recent innovation in the garage. So I don't know.
It gives you such like an immediate it's instant gratification.
Absolutely.
With the laser cutter to me.
Whereas a 3D printer, it's like, man, maybe I can order this on Amazon. It'll be here tomorrow. Sometimes. I mean, that's literally true sometimes.
I think I've had some things where I'm like, what's gonna be the best? And you're like weighing, should I 3D print it or? But no, like being able to design my own stuff has been super super fantastic, because it's weird, and I think because there's a lot of old timers in pottery, they're scared off by, oh, you used the 3D printer to make something, that's cheating. And I'm like, I'm using a whole different skill set to do this. It's not like it suddenly made it easier for me. It's just made this aspect easier.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them are really threatened by the ceramic 3D printers, because they're like, it's not hand building a mug at all. You're just printing it out. And I'm like, have you ever tried to 3D print something? I can't imagine what ceramic 3D printing something is. It's probably like a whole new nightmare of issues.
I mean, the thing is, I feel like some people get stuck on one way or another, and there's not really a good or a bad way. It's just what you want to do. I mean, if you want to build stuff out of sticks, and even Matt Perks we had on, he was making some stuff like the house out of mud or something?
House. That's a clay house. Clay and straw. He was building one in his backyard, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy low tech, but super interesting. But he also deals with higher tech stuff too, and it's like, just do what you want to get the result, and if you want to, do what you want. That's what making's all about. I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I being able to kind of manufacture stuff exactly how I want it has been super nice. Although with the parts thing, I did restore a 1970s pottery wheel my godmother gave me, because it had a broken
like a gear.
It's like a rubber ring on it. It was like basically a drive ring, and I
remember this.
And I needed a new one, and they're $99. And I measured it exactly, and I hunted through Granger, I hunted through McMaster Carr, and it was, these SOBs, this is custom made. It's not a stock part. And so what I did is I didn't have my 3D printer yet, and I needed it to be in TPU. So I actually got Pat to do it on his printer for me. And since then I've kind of refined it a little bit, since I've got my own printer and my own TPU, but my pottery wheel works now, and cost me almost nothing. So the pride where you're like, I repaired it.
Pottery wheels, whatever. Is there anything that you're really excited about that's come on the scene in the last few years, or maybe you invented?
mean, the only thing that I've did all by myself was coming up with a extruder part that could do a tube, which I was pretty pleased with that. So I
That was
actually sell
impressive.
ceramic straws in my shop.
Obviously, a tube is very hard. What do you have, like, certain, like, do you have, like, little gaps in it? I mean, because obviously you've got an inner circle and an outer circle.
The way it works, yeah, the way it works is you have for the tube, you have a piece that goes inside the tube, and it's kind of the cylinder that's suspended, and on the cylinder I've got kind of 45-degree supports holding that little cylinder up, and then on the outside of the tube it's slightly bigger, so you get kind of like a little donut like that, and then when the clay goes through, it splits around the little 45-degree angled pieces, but it kind of forms back together as the pressure pushes it out of the tube, or out of the extruder, so you get a hollow tube.
Okay.
It's more. When you told us about the earlier extruders, you were making it sound like they're very two-dimensional, like just cut out of a PVC. But this is a very three-dimensional. It's got length to it, where it gets split up and then pushed back together towards the end. I mean, a few inches. I mean, it's not like
that makes.
It's not like 8 feet long or anything, but
yeah. But it's long. It's longer than just a die. I guess that'd be the word. It's longer than just a hole for it to come out. It's actually just reforming it into something tubular.
Totally tubular, Jeremy.
As you would say. That's totally tubular.
Kind of 3D printing ceramics fascinates me. I've got a Delta style frame in my garage that I'm looking to. I need some more spare time to do all my thousands of projects, but I'd want to convert that one to a ceramic one, a ceramic 3D printer. I did see there's one guy, he has he's called Early American Robot Pottery. And he actually, and he hasn't shown the device, but he came up with a way where he has a dual extruding, but it extrudes out of one extruder. So it's like two colors. So when he's printing, he can print stripes and patterns with colored clay. And it's just incredible to see that he can do that. So you get a very unique look that I don't think you could get any other way.
Well, Pat, I guess we've heard a lot about the pottery and stuff. Do you want to go ahead and take the coffee break? And
we can take the coffee break, and we can come back and talk about Makerspaces.
I love Makerspaces.
Hey guys, welcome to the coffee break, where we talk about our sponsors and invite you to maybe become one. So let's give a shout out to our top 5 Patreons. We've got Positive Waves, Stephen Booker, Stuart Morrow, Michael Sizer, and Raptor, spelled creatively. So if you'd like to become a Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/thecreativitypodcast. And look at that, Pat.
That is correct, Jeremy. That is absolutely correct.
The money is great, but I think it almost means more just the fact that people are willing to put money. They value the show so much that they're willing to put their hard-earned money towards it. I think that's really, really amazing, and thank you so much for being Patreons. That's really awesome. Is there another way people could help us, Pat?
There might be, Jeremy.
Maybe.
There might be a way. You could... SoundCloud would like it if you hit the like button on our episode there, and YouTube appreciates it when you hit the like button and the subscribe button. That helps us out a ton.
Yeah.
And it lets other people find our podcast.
Absolutely. And, we're available on iTunes as well. So if you like that, I guess you can leave a review there. And, just thanks so much for listening. And I guess we'll get you back to your show as scheduled, or not really scheduled.
Thank you very much for listening or watching or Patreoning us. I appreciate it as well. Should I take a drink
Sounds
first?
good.
Is that the...
I mean, yeah, I guess we're supposed to do that, so...
I don't know how to do it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back from our little coffee break here. We're My co-host Jeremy's still here, and we're talking to Olivia about. We're going to talk to her about makerspaces and our local makerspace here in town, here in Plano, Texas. It's TheLab.ms. Can you? I don't know. I don't know what I was about to say, but Olivia,
Yeah.
what?
Well, what is a makerspace? As Pat was
Thank you,
going to
Jeremy.
ask, I believe.
My favorite way to describe a makerspace to people is that it is essentially a gym for tinkerers and makers, artists, hackers, people of that ilk. The idea is that there's a lot of making equipment, like a 3D printer, like a laser cutter, like a CNC machine, and so forth, that the learning curve for them is a little high, and some of them, like the laser cutter and the CNC machine, can be really pricey. So everybody can, as a member, you basically kind of pool together, and at the makerspace we're at, we let the membership kind of drive and decide what kind of equipment they'd like to see. So that not only do you have equipment that might be financially unreachable available to you, but you also have the benefit of people that may know more than you helping you out with it. For example, when I joined up, I knew little to nothing about 3D printing, but I was able to benefit from actual human beings troubleshooting with me and telling me, okay, the filament was tangled. Okay, your bed wasn't level. Here's how you level it. Let me show you. And that definitely takes a huge bit of intimidation factor when you're learning how to do new stuff like that.
Now, Pat, my understanding was you were the president of this makerspace at
Oh
some
no,
point, correct?
I was not the president.
Or your wife was? Is
I
that right,
was-
Chris?
Well, a few years ago, me and Chris were both on the board. Chris was the secretary, and I had your current job, right, Olivia? I was I think I was a floating board member, right? And the lab just had elections over the weekend, a couple of days, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, and Olivia was the president, but
tired.
she decided that's too much work, right, Olivia?
Well, how did the coup go? Was it a violent overthrow, or was it? How does that work? How do new presidents get elected? I mean, is it kind of you come in there with your gang of whoever is the strongest? It's kind of like a Thunderdome kind of situation. Another movie I haven't seen, but I hear about all the time.
Best at 3D printing and getting things done. No, a lot of it is because the makerspace we have is all volunteer. We have nobody gets paid for nothing. So, yes,
Olivia,
yes,
it's a nonprofit
as well.
organization also.
So the people that are there volunteering for the jobs, they want to be there. They want to make it happen, and they feel very passionate about it. There's very little phoning it in just to get the paycheck. So basically, about a month before elections happen, we announce, hey, elections are happening. You can nominate somebody or nominate yourself. And if you've been nominated, you can accept or reject. And I think a lot of it is kind of based on how many people know you, how many people believe in your vision for the space, and what they want to see what you think should happen.
Well, yeah, because you guys moved to a bigger space recently, right? According to Pat's notes.
I did. I wrote that.
We did.
In the
We
notes.
were in a teeny little. It basically was a retail area in Plano, and
we used to say it was 1,700 square feet, but I think it was closer to 1,400. I don't think it was really.
It's too small.
It was, and I couldn't measure it. It had diagonals in it and stuff. I have no idea how big it actually was. It was a terrible shape.
The 1,700, that includes the parking space,
so.
right?
Yeah.
Which I saw somewhere that it was like a parking space. I don't know if it was Hong Kong or Japan or whatever. Sold for $1.3 million.
Well, it was tiny. It smelled, and there was a noisy restaurant that did karaoke every weekend. We were located in Plano, and we were approached actually by the city of Richardson, who they kind of have this vision for their telecom corridor called the Richardson IQ. And so they want to attract a lot of kind of innovative businesses, small businesses, and the like. And they approached us and specifically said, we want a makerspace. And at the time, it was like spring of 2020. So nothing good was happening. And our lease was also up that summer. And so we said, okay. And we had some of the Richardson City Council members came to visit. They loved the space. They seemed to think Tommy and I were all right. And after that, we started hunting around, and we actually found a businessman who had been on the Richardson Chamber of Commerce for a long time. But he owned a building, or owns a building in Richardson. And he basically had this kind of big open area, and he said, I'm not doing anything with this right now. You know, it's always been my dream to have a makerspace. And so he financially was a huge help for us, because he said, I understand it's the pandemic. I understand that you've got to build your membership back up. And so he gave us these giant breaks on build out, rent, and our utilities. So we have been able to utilize that and kind of build our membership base back up to what, like, higher than it was pre-pandemic. So we're really excited about that. But we now have 3,000 square feet to run around in, with the option to expand into the rest of the space that we didn't do build out in. Yeah, so it's been pretty amazing, but as you can imagine, it was really tiring.
How far is Richardson? You guys are from Plano, so Richardson
It's right
is somewhere
next.
else.
It's about 5 minutes farther away from me. How about you, Olivia?
It's about 10 minutes further away.
Yep, it's the next town
So,
south
I mean,
of here.
Where I live, it's quite suburban, but it's like there's a lot of houses, and then there's like this one shopping center. I could almost steal Wi-Fi from the next store, from nearest Starbucks, because it's not like, it's kind of funny because, like, from my house, if I were to walk, it'd be a couple hundred yards, but then it's like way longer if you take the road. So I don't usually walk, but every once in a while I think about, traipsing through the woods and seeing what happens.
Are there any gators in the
See
woods
if the rangers
there?
get me or whatever. There are gators in the woods,
Okay.
but I don't want to interrupt Olivia's story yet.
We managed to also finagle some new equipment. Tommy managed to get a grant from Microsoft for the CNC machine, as well as a die sublimation printer. So we've got two fancy new toys.
I was just thinking our local hackerspace, Tampa Hackerspace, they call it Hackerspace, not Makerspace, but the same thing more or less. They had basically two wings separated by some sort of other store in the middle, or not store, like some sort of business, and they actually were able to get the lease in the middle, and now it's like one continuous like space, and that should be pretty awesome. They're a pretty decent sized makerspace. In fact, I think they do have a kiln, although I don't know that anybody uses it. Feel like people sometimes, I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. 2020 was pretty much when I stopped going.
Yeah,
I still
absolutely.
pay dues because you want to support that, but at the same time, there's 2020 as
I was there.
you guys know what went
I
on.
was there. I still am. Is it still?
I
It
guess.
feels like it's still 2020.
You were there.
But we're getting there.
We've had a lot of people that they're super excited about teaching classes again at the space. So they've been basically just waiting for it. They're like, when are we gonna have classes? And when things open back up, when people are vaccinated. So it's nice to kind of see people back in there and wanting to learn things.
One thing I think, though, with makerspaces, people working from home, etc., you might have a little bit more opportunity for more space.
For me, at the very least, it's, and I kind of feel like a lot of people would realize this, with so many periods of isolation during 2020, is that for me, it's that collaborative workspace is huge for me, because it's being able. One of the things that, again, in college not so long ago, I worked.
Not too
Yeah, I
long
worked
ago.
primarily in the printmaking shop, and one of the things I loved about it was being able to collaborate with other people. It's, oh, how do I get these inks to sit right, or how do you get to that viscosity? What is, and basically kind of discussing what you're interested in. And it's, while I do enjoy, futzing through my sketchbook and coming up with ideas of things to make and do, they're always improved by talking with somebody else. It's whether they have ideas to input or whether by talking to them I realize some alteration that could have been made to a design that I came up with. So it's,
Oh yeah.
I you cannot get that working alone in a home studio. I mean, it's that is definitely a component that's just not there. And for me, that's one of the big draws for me. And I don't consider myself like a big social person. I do like working alone. I like alone time, but at the same time, I very much value getting them to show me how to do things, which is what the space provides.
Really, the reason I'm a member of Tampa Hackerspace isn't for the tools so much. I mean, a little bit it is, but mostly for the people. I mean, I can't, I can't even hate to put a dollar amount on that, but it's so helpful, and I'm happy to support an organization that kind of helps people like me and them, and you guys get to.
Well, that was one of the things, when I was it was kind of when I had really fallen in love with ceramics, and uh, I was considering. I had been throwing back and forth. Should I go to grad school, and should I go get my master's in art? I could go for ceramics, and I was talking with my father, and I said I'd like to go. I want to learn more, but I kind of feel like I can't. I'm not sure if I want to spend the money on it. I'd be an older student going back. And he said, don't let other people impede on your education. It's not contingent upon you actually going somewhere and sitting down and listening to someone talk to you. And I thought about that and there is really no reason that I shouldn't be able to educate myself on a lot of this. I have literally the entire world open to me electronically now. I should be able to do that. And in my mind, you have spaces like Makerspaces and Hackerspaces, and you have so many people providing material online for you to learn from, is that absolutely no, you should not feel like you have to attend some kind of institution in order for your education to be valid. That there are so many other avenues. And one of the things I've noticed at the Makerspace is that because people are there voluntarily, they're passionate about it, and they have an objective that they wish to achieve, that they're learning a lot more than they might on their own. I mean, it's the number of things that I'm able to add to my resume now that I've taught myself, that I've had other people help teach me how to do, has been amazing. And I think that being able to self-educate is super important, and that a makerspace is like a big component of that, because you have those other people to talk to, because you have equipment available to you that you might not be able to. Which I'll bring that up when I see.
Yeah.
I've often seen like in an Instructables forum or something. It's, oh well, let me just bust out my laser cutter and do this project, and it's like, well, no, nobody's expecting you to have that. There are places you can go, and a lot of people aren't aware that that even exists. That is an option, that you can go to places and people will show you how to use, crazy equipment like that.
Yeah. Well, I think you've done a good job selling it. That's great. I mean, I think we'd all agree with that.
Well, I also just I do. Well, here's a plug. I completed recently an Oracle deck. That was my 2020 project. So it's basically all these little cards with adorable little fairies and imps and witchies on them. And
So if you use Oracle for your business solutions for procurement
from
and such,
my
it's,
understanding of
your deck
how
will help you
computer
out with
programming
that,
works, that it might actually
right?
be helpful in a couple of those situations. But yeah, I just finished that, and I do have an online shop.
Nice.
That's just shop.fairyhive.com.
And we'll put a link to that in the description, so you won't have to type it in yourself.
Well, what about you, Pat? You working on anything interesting these days?
What?
And if it's Uber Lights,
No, I'm not gonna.
Is it Uber Lights?
I had to talk about that with Matt because I knew he'd be excited about it. But
Oh, right.
I'm having kind of a grumpy week here, Jeremy. Can I complain about this?
It's okay. Yeah, sure.
I upgraded to the latest version of Davinci Resolve, the video editor, from 16 to 17.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really slow. I was trying to edit this episode with Tommy Trebuchet that we recorded last week with, 4 videos overlaid and moved around. It's playing real slow. And then today I decided, well, before I have to edit Olivia's episode, I should export some of the old episodes. I had 3 episodes that me and Brian recorded of the Butter What Show last month. I figured, well, let's get those exported so I don't have to worry about them, and I can downgrade back to 16. And their audio's exporting funny. It's doing weird stuff to the second. I'm really mad about this. And they say you shouldn't. The internet says you shouldn't upgrade to 17. It's basically beta. I'm like, and I can't just downgrade because it upgraded all my databases and things from 16 to 17, and you can't downgrade them. So I don't.
I love complaining.
Well, you know what they say? I can't complain, but sometimes I still do.
Always.
Right?
I always do. I can't. I'm gonna complain. I'm bummed out. I can fix all this. It's not a big deal, but it's a big deal.
Nobody got that reference either. But
crap. Where did it come from, Jeremy?
That's okay.
Is it from the head?
That song, I don't know what the artist is. He says,
is it hip hop again?
It's not hip hop. It's like very common. It's like gold records on the wall. Leave me a message.
Crap.
Maybe I'll call.
I know what you're talking about.
I don't. Who knows?
Yes.
It doesn't matter. We're not. As for me, I've been working on something.
Jeremy, you're supposed to let me ask you what you're working on.
Oh, sorry. What? Anyway.
Jeremy, what about you? What have you been working on?
Well, I am working on something that's lit up in the back, but I'm not going to talk about that now because I'm not quite ready to publish it. So we'll have to, stay tuned for that. But the other thing I've been working on that I probably will talk about a little bit sooner is, see what this is? See, I made this. I didn't make this, but it's a Roku remote. But instead of batteries, it's got a rechargeable battery with a USB port. So now if it runs out, I can just plug it in and use it some more. So I was pretty happy with the little hack. So yeah.
I've been wanting to put a lipo into my little. They sell it as it's a milk frother. It's a little hand blender thing. I use it to mix Jell-O when I make Jell-O from scratch. It doesn't.
I use it
it's
for
lazy.
For glaze.
You have to. Yeah, you have to stir Jell-O for a long time to get it to all dissolve. So I just push the button on there. But I figured the extra volt would be, make it spin a little faster. And I have all these little 1S lipos laying around, tons of them. I can't reach any from here, but they're here.
You'd say it's a first world problem, but I feel like that's more like a, like zero world problem, like beyond that.
It has to be, yeah. It absolutely has to be.
So Pat, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me at fairyhive.com. No, that's not true.
Oh, really?
But you can find Olivia there. You should definitely check out Olivia's stuff at fairyhive.com. But you can find me at patshead.com and on Twitter. There'll be links down in the description to the places you can find me. But where can we find you, Jeremy?
Well, since you asked, Pat, you can find me at jeremyscook.com or on YouTube. My name is Jeremy Cook. With the robot icon, the Jeremy S. Anyway, the Strong Beast logo, that's me. So look that up. And if you want to subscribe,
you should subscribe to the podcast too. But we probably talked about that during the coffee
we probably
break,
talked about that a
but
while ago. So
I haven't done that yet,
Yeah.
so I don't remember doing that.
go
Yeah.
ahead and wrap it
Well,
up.
thank you very much for having me on.
Thanks
This
for
is
talking
delightful
to
conversation.
us. I hope so.
Yeah.
And I didn't
likewise.
have any small children run in and whine that they're hungry.
Not even once. Not even once.
Yeah, that's all right.
And I didn't whine about being hungry either. So
That's true. You were well behaved, Pat.
thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to tell everybody that you said that.
So, all right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and end it. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening and watching if you watch that. And we'll talk to you next time.
Have a good one, everybody.